What if she changed the seating arrangements again? What if she cornered Caleb's mother and started another conversation about family values? Lexi noticed my silence and knelt beside me. Hey, she said. You've done everything. You can, whatever happens. We've got you. You hear me? I nodded. She kissed my hand. Let's get you married. The venue was perfect. The garden behind the old estate house had been transformed into something out of a dream. White roses, string lights, a gentle breeze rustling the petals as guests filtered in. Caleb was already waiting by the altar, looking almost unfairly handsome in his navy suit. And then I saw her. My mom, seated in the second row, wearing lavender. Not white. No clipboard, no headset. Just her in a small clutch in her lap, fingers folded tightly. She caught my eye, gave me a soft nod, and mouthed, "You look beautiful." I wanted to believe that this time she meant it. The walk as I took my father's arm and stepped onto the aisle, the world blurred. It was a tunnel of color and sound and emotion. Could barely breathe. I locked eyes with Caleb. He smiled that crinkly, crooked smile that had made me fall in love with him all those months ago. It grounded me, reminded me why we were here. We reached the front. My dad kissed my cheek and whispered, "She's behaving." I smiled. Then I turned toward Caleb, and everything else disappeared. The vows Caleb went first. He didn't read from paper. I knew. "I loved you," he said, "the day you insisted we watch a 6-part documentary about sea otters instead of going out. You were passionate, curious, weird, and brilliant, and I couldn't look away." There were laughs. And tears. "I promise," he said, "to love you through the chaos, to listen even when it's hard, to always choose you even when choosing is scary. You're not just my home, you're the spark that makes me want to build one." I was crying before he finished. Then it was my turn. My voice trembled, but I didn't stop. I used to think I had to earn love, that I had to be perfect, agreeable, easy to handle. But you showed me that love doesn't come with conditions, that I don't have to shrink to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. I looked at my mom as I said it. She blinked, but said nothing. "I promise to love you without expectations, to fight fair, to protect this bond, even when life throws its worst. You make me brave, and I choose you today and always." The ceremony. And as we kissed and turned to face our friends and family as husband and wife, applause thundered. Even from her, I saw her clapping. Smiling. And for a moment, just a moment, it felt like we'd made it, like we could all just be. The reception begins. We moved inside for the reception, and everything sparkled. Fairy lights crisscrossed the ceiling. The tables were exactly as I'd envisioned, elegant, warm, inviting. Dinner was exquisite. Caleb's best man speech made. People laughed so hard they nearly choked. My mom even gave a toast. Brief. Polite. She simply said, "To my daughter and new husband, may your marriage be filled with grace, patience, and joy. You've already shown great strength." People clapped. I exhaled. But Lexi leaned over and whispered, "Keep your eyes open. She's being quiet." Too quiet? The whisper happened during the father-daughter dance. I was swaying to a slow song, holding my dad's hand, letting the room melt away. Then I felt a tap on my shoulder. My mom. She leaned in, smile fixed on her face. "You look radiant," she whispered, "but I do think you could have picked a more flattering dress." I froze, just like that. The spell cracked. My dad tensed. But I held my smile, leaned in, and whispered back, "This isn't the time." She blinked, clearly not expecting pushback. Then she walked away like nothing had happened. The breaking point, I tried to let it go. I really did. But then I found her. By the dessert table, talking to Caleb's mother. About how some brides don't appreciate tradition, about how young women these days are obsessed with control. I didn't hear every word, but I saw the way Caleb's mother's face tightened, and I snapped. The confrontation. I walked up, took my mom by the elbow, and pulled her gently but firmly aside. "We had a deal," I said. Her eyes widened. "What?" "You promised to behave." "I was just making conversation." "No, you were undermining me. Again." she scoffed. Oh, don't be so dramatic. Don't, I said. Don't do that. Don't minimize me. Not today. She looked genuinely shocked. This is why I didn't tell you about the letter. I added, she went still. I hadn't meant to say it. But it was out now, the final line. She stared at me. What letter? I took a breath. The one I never sent. The one where I told you I wasn't going to invite you? She went pale. You weren't invited? I changed my mind. I gave you a chance. And now, I'm asking you not to ruin this. Silence. Then. For once. She didn't fight. She nodded. And she left. Part 5. After the dance ends, the music faded. The lights dimmed. The last guests offered their goodbyes, their congratulations, their hugs. Caleb and I were finally alone. Well, almost. Lexi was helping pack up gift cards and leftover macarons. My cousin was wrangling tipsy groomsmen out of the photo booth. And I was sitting in a quiet corner of the reception hall, still in my dress, my head leaning back against the wall, wondering how I felt. Relieved? Angry? Hollow? My mother had left hours ago. After I told her clearly and calmly to go, she went without screaming, without a final barb. That silence was louder than anything else. She could have said "Dot the talk with Caleb." He sat beside me and took my hand. She really left? He asked. I nodded. I asked her to. He didn't respond for a moment, just rubbed my palm with his thumb. Ben, I'm proud of you. That surprised me. I looked up at him. For what? For standing your ground. You gave her a chance? She blew it? You protected your peace. It was such a simple thing to say, but it hit hard. I wasn't used to being validated like that, especially not when it came to my mom. For so long, standing my ground meant guilt, backlash, tears. But not this time. This time, I had someone who saw it for what it was. Survival. Lexi's intervention later. After the cleanup started and the caterers packed their things, Lexi cornered me in the hallway behind the kitchen. She held a cupcake in one hand, a mini bottle of champagne in the other. You good? She asked. I shrugged. That was big, she said. What was? You finally did what we've all wanted you to do for years. I blinked. Wait, what? Lexi exhaled and leaned against the wall beside me. I never wanted to say this during the planning, but your mom's always been a problem. Controlling, dismissive, judgy as hell. My jaw tightened. She's your mom, Lexi said gently. So I get it. I get why you always made excuses for her, but tonight, that was the first time you didn't. I swallowed hard. She said, the dress was unflattering, right after the ceremony. Lexi rolled her eyes. Of course she did. I almost let it slide, but you didn't. That's growth. We clinked her champagne bottle in my empty water glass, to cutting off passive-aggressive vampires. Alone again at the hotel, everything felt too quiet. Caleb and I had booked a room overlooking the lake. I stepped out onto the balcony, still in my dress, hair a little messy now. Makeup smudged in the corners of my eyes. The water shimmered in the dark. Thought about the morning, got about her toast, about the whisper, about the look she gave me. When she realized I'd almost uninvited her, she looked scared. Not angry, not smug, just stunned. Like a script she'd clung to her whole life had suddenly changed, and no one had handed her a new one. The letter. Revisited, I opened my suitcase and pulled out my journal. The letter was still inside, folded in half, stained with a few teardrops from the night I'd written it. Dear Mom, I love you, but I cannot allow you to sabotage the happiest day of my life. I reread the first few lines. My hand trembled. Back when I wrote it, it felt like a fantasy. Something I could never actually send. But now, I wasn't so sure. Should I still give it to her? Should I let her know I meant it? Would it even matter? The flashback. 1 year ago, I remembered the first time I told her I was engaged. Her reaction? Oh, already? No smile, no hug, no congratulations. Just suspicion. Judgment. And then, I hope you're not rushing into this just to get away from me. That line had stuck with me like gum on a shoe. Annoying, persistent, nearly impossible to scrape off at the time. I'd laughed, tried to diffuse it, but now A year later, I realized how much she'd projected in that one sentence. She knew I was building a life where she didn't get to play the leading role, and that terrified her. Unexpected message at 3:11 a.m. My phone. Buzz thought it was a message from Caleb's mom. Just wanted to say, I'm really glad you stood up for yourself tonight. I saw the whole thing. Your mother, she crossed the line. I'm proud of how you handled it. Welcome to the family. I sat there staring at it, stunned. She had been so quiet at the wedding. Graceful, observant. I hadn't realized she'd seen. It. I replied, thank you. That means more than you know. The dream that night, I had a dream. I was walking down the aisle again. Only this time, I was alone. No music. No guest. Just me. And at the end. Not Kayla. But my mom. She stood at the altar, clipboard in hand, telling me to fix my hair, change my shoes, choose another bouquet. In the dream, I turned around and walked the other way. And when I woke up, I felt lighter. The phone call next day, I didn't expect her to call, but she did. Around noon. I stared at the screen for a full minute before answering. Hi. Silence. Then, I owe you an apology. I sat down on the bed. My hands were cold. I crossed a line, she continued. Several, actually. And I'm sorry. I didn't say anything. She took a breath. I was angry that you didn't need. I think. I've been angry about that for a long time. Still, I said nothing. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say I see now. That I wasn't helping, I was controlling. I hope. I hope I didn't ruin everything. That cracked something inside me. You didn't ruin it, I said. But you came close? More silence. I know, she whispered. The choice after the call. Caleb came in. Towel around his shoulders from the hotel shower. Was that her? He asked. I nodded. What did she say? I told him. He listened. Then he said, you don't have to decide anything now, but you get to decide. That was the thing. I got to decide. Not her. Not guilt. Not tradition. Me. The visit a week. We invited her for coffee. Neutral territory. Small cafe with mismatched chairs and plenty of windows. She arrived early. She stood when I walked in. And this time she didn't reach for my hair or criticize my outfit or roll her eyes. She said, hi. And I said, hi. We talked. Not about the wedding. Not at first. We talked about her garden. About the flowers that didn't bloom. This year. About how she found a stray kitten in the backyard. Eventually. I said, I need boundaries. She nodded. I mean real ones. Another nod. And then I'm willing to try. The quiet healing didn't fix everything. She was still her. Opinionated. Passive aggressive. Occasionally. Tone deaf. But something had shifted. Maybe because for the first time, I had stopped trying to be her perfect daughter. I had let her be. Disappointed. I had stood up for myself, and she'd seen that. I wasn't going to fall apart. The new chapter 1 month after the wedding, I got a card in the mail. No glitter. No sarcasm. Just a plain card with a painting of a teacup on the front. Inside. Thank you for inviting me to your wedding. I'm sorry I made it harder than it had to be. I'm proud of you. I'm trying to learn. Signed. Love, Mom. Part 6. The letter I never sent. It had been 6 weeks since the wedding. The chaos had subsided. The thank you notes had been mailed. The dress had been dry cleaned and packed away in a garment bag that now hung in the back of our closet. Life had slowly returned to normal. Except for the letter. The one I never sent. The one I wrote months before the ceremony, after a particularly brutal phone call with my mother, in which she questioned my taste, my choice of venue, and my ability to be a good wife. I'd written the letter that night. I poured every ounce of frustration, love, grief, and boundary into it. And then I folded it neatly, slid it into the back of my journal, and left it there. I wasn't brave enough to give it to her then. But now, as I sat on our balcony one warm Saturday morning, coffee in hand, I opened that journal again. The letter. It was still there, still waiting. Reading it again. Dear Mom, I love you, but I cannot keep loving you at the cost of myself. I cannot keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. The words hit me harder now than they did when I first wrote them. Maybe because back then they were still theoretical. Now I had actually lived them. Now they had weight. I kept reading Dot. I want you at my wedding. I want you in my life. But only if you can respect the boundaries I've set, not as a punishment, but as protection. For both of us, Dot, if you cannot do that, then I'm afraid I will have to protect myself. Even if it means protecting myself from you. I folded the letter again. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. Dot talking to Caleb found me on the balcony about 30 minutes later. He sat down beside me, brushing hair out of my face. You look like you're thinking hard, he said. I handed him the letter. Is this new? He asked. No. Oh, I wrote it before the wedding. He read it silently, then looked up at me. Do you still feel this way? I nodded. I think I always will, but I don't think I need to send it anymore. Because of the apology? He asked. Because I already lived it, I said. I didn't need the letter. I did the thing. He smiled. You did. I looked out over the trees, their leaves starting to turn gold at the edges. There's something kind of sad about that, I said. How so? That I had to write it in the first place. That I ever had to explain to my mother why I deserve respect. Caleb nodded slowly. Sad, but also kind of powerful. A visit from Maya stopped by that afternoon. Dot. She brought a pie. She'd made from scratch and flopped onto our couch like she owned the place. Typical Maya energy. You look weirdly calm, she said. Taking a bite of the apple pie she insisted we eat immediately. I feel weirdly calm, I admitted. Post-wedding serenity. Post-mother clarity. Oof. Say less. She looked at me for a long time. Then said, I love your mom in that she scares me kind of way. But what you did at the wedding? Brave as hell. Thanks. She actually hasn't said anything to me. No angry texts. No passive-aggressive memes. That's a record. Maybe she's finally getting it, or plotting. I gave her a look. She raised her hands. Kidding, mostly. What I wanted to say that night, after Maya left and Caleb went to bed early with a headache, I opened my journal again. I flipped to the page after the letter, and I started writing not a letter this time, just a list. Things I wish I could say to my mother. I needed more softness and less control. I'm not a reflection of you. And I never was. Your pain is not mine to carry. I didn't betray you by growing up. I loved you even when it hurt me. I still do, but I will never let it hurt me again. The words came quickly, like they'd been waiting all along. Mom reaches out again a week later. She called. We hadn't spoken since our coffee meeting. Hi, I answered. Hi, sweetheart, she said. Voice uncharacteristically gentle. We talked about neutral things. At first, her book club, a new recipe she tried, a documentary she liked. Then she said, I've been thinking about what you said. My stomach flipped. I never realized how much I demanded of you emotionally, she continued. I thought I was being involved, supportive. You were intense. I offered carefully. I think I was afraid of being irrelevant. She said, I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said, thank you for saying that. She sighed. I don't want to lose you. I want to do better. I need time. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I understand. And I did. Because I also needed time. The new normal in the weeks that followed. Things began to shift. Subtly. Quietly. She didn't call every day. She didn't text passive-aggressive articles. She didn't interrogate me about every decision. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes she slipped. But when she did, I pointed it out, and she miraculously listened. One time, after she made a cutting remark about how I probably don't cook for Caleb because Postmates is easier, I simply said. That felt judgmental. She paused. Then replied, You're right. I'm sorry. That moment meant more to me than any apology at the wedding ever could. Letting go of the fantasy, I think. Part of growing up is realizing you may never get the relationship you dreamed of with your parents. I'll probably never have the kind of mom who sends thoughtful care packages or bakes cookies, just because She may never be my best friend, but she's trying, and I'm healing. That's enough for now. Uh, Final decision, I burned the letter. A month after the wedding, on a breezy October evening, I walked to the fire pit in our backyard and dropped it. In dot, it curled into ash slowly. The flames were quiet. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just stood there, feeling the warmth and thinking, I did it. I chose myself. Part 7. Closure isn't always clean 3 months after the wedding. My mother mailed me a photo. It was a snapshot from the reception. Me and Caleb, forehead to forehead, laughing about something I don't even remember now. We looked light, like nothing had ever been heavy. On the back of the photo, in her familiar cursive, she had written, I still have so much to learn. Thank you for giving me the chance to try. I stared at those words for a long time. I didn't cry, but I smiled because finally, I believed her. The echo of old wounds, I won't lie to you. The healing didn't come in one big dramatic wave. It was more like weather, some days sunny, some days overcast. Sometimes there'd be lightning, sometimes just a cool, quiet breeze. I still flinched a little when my phone rang and I saw her name. Not because I expected a fight, but because my body had learned over decades to brace itself. Healing is like that. Your mind can understand safety before your nervous system does. Learning how to talk again, our conversation started changing. Not just what we talked about, but how there was a new kind of silence between us, not awkward, but gentle. She stopped filling every pause with advice or stories about herself. I stopped trying to impress her or make her laugh just to keep her in a good mood. We started asking each other real questions. One afternoon, while I was driving home from work, she asked, do you think I was too hard on you as a kid? I was quiet, then said, yes. She didn't argue, didn't defend. She just said, I'm sorry. And it hit me harder than any lecture she'd ever given. Boundaries. That hold I used to think setting boundaries meant building walls. Now I think it's more like building a fence with a gate you control. The gate doesn't mean people get in freely. It means you decide when and why and how. That's what I did with my mother. And for the first time, I think she respected it. She started asking if she could visit instead of announcing it. She started checking in before sending advice articles or parenting memes. She even asked once if she could post a photo of me, something she never used to do. It was small, but huge. The final test that came one chilly afternoon in December. I had just found out I was pregnant, only 5 weeks early enough to keep it quiet. But Caleb and I were buzzing with excitement and nerves. It felt like we were holding a glowing secret between us. I told my mom. 2 weeks later, she screamed, cried, laughed, then paused. Can I be involved? She asked. I know I haven't always respected your space, but I want to do this differently. I was shocked, but in a good way. I said yes with conditions. No showing up uninvited, no overriding my choices. No, I know better speeches. She nodded. I can do that. And so far, she has one more letter. I never sent the first letter I wrote her, but I wrote a second one. This one. I mailed. It wasn't long. Just a simple card. Dear Mom, I see the effort you're making. I see the change, however imperfect, and I want you to know I notice. I appreciate it. We're both learning. And I'm proud of us. What I learned, there's this fantasy a lot of us carry, that one day we'll have the perfect closure, the teary-eyed apology, the warm hug, the emotional montage moment with background music and soft lighting. Real life doesn't usually work like that. Closure comes in pieces. In conversations you never thought you'd have. In quiet moments when someone surprises you by trying. And showing up differently. Not just once, but again and again. My mother and I will probably never be the mother-daughter duo who brunches every weekend and finishes each other's sentences. But we're learning how to love each other better. And that's enough.